Hi guys, in today's video we will be focusing on a 10 out of 10 section B response that focuses on the main principles I want to talk about today that will help you excel within this section. So this model response that I have developed and I actually used in my own section B scored a 20 out of 20 in the 2024 VCEE exam. So it definitely does do a few things well. But I don't want you guys to think that this is the be-all and do-all for section B. This is just my own unique piece of writing that I've developed. I just want you to focus mainly about the four main principles I'm going to be talking about today in relation to the section B, and make sure you're following these things. But me showing this model response is just for you to kind of gauge an idea of what you actually really need to do in regards to section B. So, with section B, this is in response to the framework of personal journeys. However, if you are not doing personal journeys, this video is still applicable to you. It's just, obviously just want to talk about the main principles, but apply it to whatever framework you're doing, whether it's protest, play, country, or whatever. So that is that. And then the purpose of my piece was to kind of reflect. So this is kind of a reflective letter in the form. The form is a letter. And a little bit about the piece, a little bit context behind the piece. This is basically just a letter to my mother about kind of me coming to terms with my own career and kind of leaving behind the cultural expectations that were kind of ingrained with me from childhood. So that's the kind of thing there. You can kind of have a read of that in the introduction here. But the main focus of today's lesson is obviously focusing on those four principles of a section B, and I'll write them down now. So the first one is maintaining a authentic voice, so really projecting what your unique voice is, and I will get to these things later. The second thing is show, don't tell. So this is all about descriptive language, literary language, and things like that. The next thing is your framework, so making sure it is whatever you're writing is actually relevant or coming from the views, ideas of your framework. And then the last thing, the last thing is your connection to the stimulus and title, and this is ultimately what you will be assessed on, so we will not neglect that as well. So we'll start with the first point here, authentic voice. And a little bit of summary of what I mean by authentic voice is basically just asking yourself this question before you go into writing. What is actually the message you want to get across to your examiner or your kind of imaginary audience? And, is what you're writing about something that is truly passionate with you? I want you guys to ask yourself this very important question. Because think about it like this. If you were writing a piece about something you were completely disinterested about, do you think you would write a very expressive, a very unique, insightful piece? I'm pretty sure that the voice would be pretty lacking. It would sound a little bit artificial and robotic almost. And that isn't really the purpose of crafting text. The purpose of crafting text is for you to almost grasp your inner self. Grasp your inner ideas and almost really just write down what your story is. And this is kind of what I tell my students to do whenever they think about, does my writing have an authentic voice, does it not? Really think about, whatever they're writing about is something that is, truly something that is connected to them. So this letter here is obviously very connected to me, and I felt as though my authentic voice was projected pretty well, since it was something that is actually true. It was something that was relevant to my own childhood. I felt as though I was burdened by cultural expectations a lot during my childhood, and that did have a very big impact on me. And a result of that, I really wanted to depict that as part of my personal journey in that own light. But, in the same way, whatever your kind of framework is, for instance, if it's protest, if there's something you feel particularly protesty about, or something that you feel like there is a strong change that needs to occur within this world or something like that. I feel as though if you write about a matter like that, your authentic voice will naturally just come out really well. So it's just a matter of writing about what you're interested in, writing about something that is pertinent to you and your story and your ideas, and this thing will definitely be ticked off there. Okay, let's just maybe go through some bits in this writing where I feel like an authentic voice has definitely been expressed very well. So one of the first things here, there's code switching here. And this definitely does develop an authentic voice, because I'm kind of switching the terms from my own language, amma, which is from, my own language, and then kind of switching that in between English language. So instead of saying dear mum, I'm saying something from, my own language. And by doing this definitely does reflect a little bit from my own culture, from my own ideas, from my own story. And that's the kind of thing I really want to get across here. Now, the next thing maybe that might reflect a little bit of authentic voice is me really talking directly to the recipient of my letter, which is my mum. So here I'm talking directly to my mum. I will prevail, a life I never wanted. Those things are very strong, they're very expressive, and they really do project my voice. So those are some things just to take note of with authentic voice, to give you a little bit of an idea around that. Okay, so moving on, the second thing I really want to describe and emphasizes the importance of is show, don't tell. So this is obviously where figurative language, descriptive language, all of those things come into play. And this is how the examiners really try assess your knowledge of vocabulary, your understanding of writing, and your ability to take simple ideas and turn them into kind of more complex, more layered kind of things that in the end of the day have more valuable insights or have more valuable depth, and that depth will definitely be rewarded. So some examples of where you can definitely see that kind of thing coming across here is an example of show, don't tell. This is to basically highlight my sense of distance between my mother. And you can see I'm not just saying I felt an eerie distance between you and me. I'm using a metaphor. I'm using the metaphor of the earth to kind of convey this distance. So if I read it, and this is something I encourage you guys to do yourself, read your writing and see if it sounds emotional, see if it sounds effective, and see if it is something that would actually, touch the examiners. So, like a gaping wound in the surface of the earth, threatening to pour its deep flesh into the line of sight, obscuring ourselves from conversing. It's definitely a very strong, effective thing that is being conveyed there. And definitely can see the complexity and the layering of the emotions within that. Some other examples is I use kind of flower as a symbol here. So a lot of symbols for show, don't tell. I'm talking about the monument of books, which is basically another symbol for academic expectations. And it's very, very expressive. You can all in all just see that I'm not telling my emotions. I'm not telling what the thoughts in my head are, because this is naturally a quite reflective piece. I'm showing them through, whether it be symbols, whether it just be descriptive writing, or, whatever for that matter. So that is show, don't tell. And then the third thing I want to pay attention to is the framework itself. And this is something that is underlooked sometimes. A lot of people just think, let me just go in there, let me write my best piece of writing. But before you even start writing, your teachers, your examiners have given you something to follow, and that is the framework. And if you don't follow the framework, you will be penalized. So what I want you to focus on, within the framework, because that might sound a little bit confusing, like, just follow personal journeys or just follow protest, is to really think about the views and values that come under or attach from each framework. And views and values is basically just another way of saying what are the smaller ideas that come from the framework. So for instance, for personal journeys, a very strong view and value is identity. There is definitely a lot of belonging, even change, courage. Those type of things are very inherent to personal journeys, and it would be quite weird almost if you didn't include any of those things into your writing. So it's very important to think about those views and values, see how they shape your writing. Like somewhere am I talking about identity, am I talking about the importance of change, or what lesson this important change taught me in the middle of my writing. And if you talk about these little views and values here and there, the examiner will definitely see this person has a very strong knowledge on the framework, and they really understand what's been given to them, and you'll be rewarded as a result of that. And when you think about it, views and values hasn't been, I guess, directly taught to you guys as students, but how you guys do mentor texts and things like that. That's ultimately the goal of them, to kind of understand, what is being expected of you. You're obviously not expected to just copy down your mentor text, but you're meant to be inspired. And these views and values is the kind of root of that inspiration. So that is the connection to the framework. And then last but not least is the stimulus and title. And this is a very, very important one as well, even though I put it as a fourth one. And this is very important because this is ultimately how the examiners check that each person has not just plagiarized or memorized some random piece of writing and just regurgitated it in the final exam. This is to make sure on exam day, since everyone will be given the same stimulus and title, is to make sure each piece of writing is unique to its own purpose and its own kind of thing there. So this is obviously a very important thing, and if you write some piece of writing with a kind of pretty big disconnection to what the stimulus and title is talking about, that can have negative consequences, because obviously your examiner can just say, you've just written something, completely random. It could have been plagiarized. It could have been something that your tutor has just handed you, but you don't want your examiner to think those things. You want to just look at the title. You want to look at the stimulus and be as specific as possible to those things. So I'll kind of give you an example of how I'm trying to be specific to the stimulus and title. There isn't a title here, but we'll take a look at the stimulus. So this stimulus here is kind of, demonstrating a person in the middle and kind of, avenues or pathways or literally just roads kind of branching out from the middle. And kind of the way I've interpreted it in this letter is those different roads represent the different careers, the different kind of parts within my life that I can take, which were kind of limited to me at a young age because of kind of the expectations I was brought upon. So I definitely want to talk about that stimulus thing. And the stimulus, again, isn't something that you just talk about once in your essay or even the title for its matter. It's something that you keep revisiting. You need to keep revisiting this title and stimulus and make sure the idea that you're kind of talking about is consistent throughout your whole essay. So, maybe it can progress. It doesn't have to be consistent in that manner, but it has to be consistent into the fact that, you're not just going on a tangent. You're still kind of talking about the stimulus and title throughout your whole essay. So definitely need to be doing those kind of things there. And maybe let's highlight my attempts of connecting to the stimulus in the introduction of my letter. So obviously the careers of my imagination, that is definitely something that is relevant to the stimulus. I talk about my career as a journalist. Obviously talking a lot about cultural expectations. And a curvature of plans trailing my imminent future. So those obviously curvature of plans is kind of linking back to the multiple avenues of roads, or in other words plans that are kind of surrounding me. So a kind of interesting way to think about revisiting the stimulus, and a way I like to do it is by constantly introducing some sort of a extended metaphor or and a kind of motif throughout your piece that will just constantly remind your examiner that, yep, this student is staying on track with the essay, the connection to the stimulus is strong, the connection to the title is strong, and this is something that they've definitely just developed on the spot, and it's not just like a random plagiarized piece that, the tutor has just handed to them. So, all in all, those are kind of the main things I wanted to discuss about in regards to section B. So I definitely feel as though if you're ticking off these check marks here, you're ticking off, I have an authentic voice, I'm doing show, don't tell, I'm obviously connecting to my framework and my stimulus and title, you will be on a very good path, and you'll be doing much better than a lot of other students who don't kind of have this guidance. So good luck with your exams. If you have any questions, let me know. But yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.